Sean, you had James Garner back on the bench last week. Who's fit to return this week and who isn't?
Miko, illness, just making a decision on his strength coming out of illness, but trained today. Pato's played another game, but still getting that true match sharpness. Dom's around it again with us training, but still making a decision on when he's truly right to come back in. So that'll be as the next few days go on.
In terms of Dom being truly right, what do you need to see?
Just all the markers you can imagine. There's some statistical markers from his history. There's some training markers from his history as well, from his training regime before we got here. The week that he trained before he was injured, and then of course speaking to him as well. It's often the case when, especially as players get a little bit older, they start learning more about their bodies, and he will have done that. It's a tough run he's had on and off over the last couple of years, but you do learn more about your body. So speaking to him and making sure that he feels right about things, as well as the medical team.
If not this week, then looking positive to next week?
Well, it's early yet. He's just got on the grass with us, but he's done a lot of rehab, and the stats and facts and the way he's feeling is good. So positive signs, that's for sure.
Obviously, this week we've seen confirmation that Moise Keane has effectively left the club, and it just goes in I suppose it carries on from the fact that Richarlison went in the summer, Anthony Gordon went in this transfer window. I appreciate all these deals were done effectively before you arrived at the football club, but what change can you effect, Sean, to make sure that in the future this football club doesn't find themselves so short of forward options?
Well, I'm learning about the past, if you like, decisions, the rights, wrongs, ins and outs. That it's very difficult for sure, by the way, recruitment. I think over the years we've all seen, not speaking of Everton, just clubs in general, have put lots and lots of money into situation. It doesn't always work. So it's very difficult in general anyway, recruiting at the right numbers now. I've said many times over these years I've been in the Premier League that the market doesn't care what we think anymore. You either pay it or you don't pay it. So, figures we used to all probably we could all probably chat through a certain player and probably come out with a similar view on their worth. Now it's out the window. You just pay what a club want or you don't pay. So that can be tricky. So going forward, I think open lines of communication with all the relevant people involved that are needed, and defining the best options that we can get.
What work then is being done now, I suppose, to bring in the forward options that you want in the summer? Because I'd imagine that's the priority for you now, isn't it?
Well, from what I've seen, you say about the priorities, but every situation has to be looked at because we're overloaded in certain areas, so it has to be looked at with that as well. Of course, striking options, that's plain to see. Everyone knows that, but it's not just about striking options. It's about forming a group that can be stronger going forwards. And I think there is a good group. I said when I got here, a lot of noise made about strikers, and of course I understand why and the importance of. But at the end of the day, there's a very good group here, I believe. There's some very, very good footballers here. And I wouldn't go far away from looking at that. But then how can we adjust that, of course, is the ongoing way that football works. So how we can adjust it positively and how we can keep increasing the team belief and the team capacity in winning games, obviously.
And with the players that you have, how did you feel Demarai Gray did in that central striking role last week?
Yeah, I thought he did well. We're asking to change a little bit. He worked hard. Neil Morpay's been working very hard as well, and he's worked great in training this week. So there's no disappointments there. He's got on with it, and I think Demarai showed signs of what he can do. He nicked a goal, albeit from the penalty spot, but he still get another goal. So I've enjoyed his open-mindedness to it because it's not. He has played there, but it's not always that familiar to him. But I thought he delivered a good performance.
What did you say to the players as a whole after the game against Nottingham Forest? Because the incident where you see the second goal conceded, Abdoulaye Doucouré is trying to be positive with his action on the ball, yet ultimately gets caught out for the second goal. So how do you what message do you put across to the players? Because he was effectively doing what you want, in trying to be positive in that moment.
Yeah, the biggest thing is eradicating the what seem simple moments, because we made a few, like I say, they seem simple things. They're not always as simple when you're out there. I played for a long time, and they're not always as simple when you're at pitch level and it's live and all that sort of stuff. But taking away, some simple errors. But he was terrific on the day, and he has been since I walked in the building. So I'm certainly not going to overthink his part in that. He's trying to do the right thing. As you said, it's more of a tactical thing, actually, because if you want players to play with freedom, you want them to counter, especially second half at Forest, we did many times, find the key moments. And what you're asking for then is the balance of the team. So it's not just the fact that the ball changes hands. It's we just strip the midfield, and that's something that we've got to continually learn about. When you are counter-attacking, you still have to be balanced. You still have to know what the team role is and be aware that if the ball turns over in transition, you've got to be working sharp. So these are all learning curves, and it's not about. You've got to remember the players. A lot of these players are wise players. They've been in the Premier League, not all, but a lot have been in the Premier League for a long time. They know the details. They know it, and that's the frustrating bit. They know them details are important, but the game reminds you how important they are, and we've got to make sure that we can, because a lot of the performance was correct, especially for an away performance, I felt, and then these, we have been. And I will say, you don't want to cry you're lucky, but we've been punished a little bit on a couple of turnovers where you think, well, because they've still got a bit to do, and it could still, it's a great finish, but that can still fly over, wide, etc., etc. It's one of them. So we have been punished a couple of times, but we want to make sure that we don't put teams in a chance, give them a chance to punish us or hurt us with attacking play, of course.
I used must win last week, or asked you if it was getting to that.
It's every week, isn't it? Is that not every week?
Kind of similar again.
I thought so, yeah.
But there'll be many who turn up at Goodison Park feeling that it is a must win, particularly with the games that you've got to come after that.
Look, every game, I've said it every week, and my mentality has always been every game's a must win. That's how you should play football, in my opinion. Every game, pre-season games, you should be thinking, I need to get myself in that winning feeling. I need to work hard to get into that winning mode. That's what I believe. Maybe because I was a limited footballer, so I had to have. No, I mean it sincerely. I was an okay footballer. I had to have that edge. I had to have it. I had to. I knew I did. So I played every game like that. That's what I thought it, got me right. So every game, or should be, a big game, no matter what game you're playing in, because it just reaffirms the mentality constantly. And then it becomes normal. And when you got that, when that normality comes, where it's just ingrained in you, then that's a very helpful tool to have. So that's what I speak to the players about. But you have to earn it, of course. There's another team out there trying to stop you winning games. But every game should be, the feeling should be, and the prep should be. It's a big game. It's an important game.
When it's outside forces, like obviously fans, they'll feel nervous about the situation. What impact does that have when you try to create that kind of bubble within your dressing room?
Well, part of being a footballer is to understand that, and I think we've got players here who certainly do. I certainly do as a manager. My staff do, and that's part of being a professional. Everyone wants to be a footballer, of course. Well, not everyone. People who are into football want to be footballers. When you're a kid, you want to be a footballer. Well, at some point, you become a professional footballer. The professional bit, that's the key. That's the bit that makes you handle things. That's the way that you can conduct yourself and play with freedom, even though it's professional freedom, as I call it. When you want to play, you want to enjoy it, but there's a professional responsibility and a job to do. So the players should understand that. I certainly do, and I'm sure the players do here. So that's part of what comes. Part of with the pressures, stresses, the thoughts on football. It's all in the melting pot, and part of playing the big games for different reasons, of course, but they're all big games, as I said. For me, it was normalising that, just going, right, my mentality is every time I go out there, that's a big game, and it's important. So, therefore, in my opinion, when we get that kind of thought process, big, small games, whatever the outside world deems, you're ready. And that's what I'm trying to encourage the players to think like. Every day counts, every game counts.
What kind of tests do Brentford present?
Well, they've done well. They're proving that they're a good outfit. They're learning from last season going this season. I know the manager a little bit, spent a bit of time with him. I like what he's done. He's not a brandist. He plays direct when they need to. They can play force football when they need to. They can play physically, but they can play as well. And I think they've got a good mix there. So, that's another challenge right in front of us. But as said, every team in the Premier League, they're there for a reason. I don't think there's, teams can have bad spells and stuff, but they're not bad teams necessarily. So, yet again, the method that we use or we try and use to plan for these games is making sure that all the necessary information is given to the players. They understand the opposition, but then what we can do to look after ourselves and get results. So that process is ongoing, and they're just another side in the Premier League, which are a good outfit.
Obviously, Ivan Toney is a big part of what they do as well. How do you feel about a situation, though, where he's admitted gambling charges and breaking FA rules, contested others, yet is still allowed to play?
Well, I don't know what the exact protocols for that are. I've only really been through one situation with Joey a number of years ago. The lapse from when it gets reported about the bets, then when it happens. I can't remember what the timescale was on that off the top of my head. But there will be a reason, I'm sure. These things take time, and that's up to the powers that be. That's nothing to do with me. So they'll decide when it's right and do whatever they have to do.
Thanks, Vinny. We'll go to
Cheers.
James Marford at Radio Moses.
Hi, Sean.
Just on Andros Townsend, how far away is he in terms of injury?
Yeah, I didn't mention him in the injury list just because he's not close really yet, whereas the others coming back into the fold. But he's going along steadily. Obviously, he'd had a pretty serious knee injury and he'd had a couple of setbacks with it, but it seems to be calming now, and he seems to be in a better place with himself with it as well, because it gets very frustrating for players when you're out for a long time.
You picked up 5 yellow cards against Forest, and that possibly reflected the sort of game it was. Are you mindful of discipline within the squad, and is there a line between being aggressive and being over the top?
I don't think you see over the top nowadays in football, very rarely. I actually didn't think it was a particularly aggressive game. I was surprised by the amount of yellow cards on the day. Sometimes it happens, with the refereeing decisions. Sometimes it doesn't. They let some things go, they don't. I think most of football and fans, with my time out, were discussing they like the idea that the refs are now trying to let the game be a little bit more open, a little bit more free-flowing. It's still one of them things that's a strange one to me. I mean, we did see it actually in the week, but players have a tackle and get a yellow card. Players dive all over the place and get nothing, although they're sort of beginning to show signs they want to affect that. Still a little bugbear of mine, but generally speaking, I didn't think there was much in the game, to be honest. I didn't think it was that much that was untoward. If they have to give yellow cards, it's the modern game. They give them for not very much nowadays.
Overall, looking at the Forest game, how much of a platform does that give you now to take into this Brentford match?
Yeah, I think it's just the mentality that I've been speaking about since I got here and speaking with the players about, as a group, and the mentality to perform, but also to take on whatever comes in front of you, whatever challenge. The way we work, the way that we want to sort of get the team working, is have it tight enough where we can affect games defensively, but also loose enough where we can affect it openly. And I thought for large parts of the game, particularly the first half at Forest, we were very good on both. And I thought we were, a mistake and a soft one against Villa. I thought it was a pretty thorough performance, to be honest. And we're good against Leeds, so there's strong signs, but obviously no one gives you anything. You don't just win because there's strong signs. You win because you get everything right all the way through a 90-odd minute match. Like I've said to you before, I said in this room before, all of us would take a lucky one now and again. All of us, anyone. But you can't really build on lucky ones. You've got to build on something that's real. And I see something that's real happening. I see the team working effectively and efficiently. I see the shape getting better, working on transition better, and beginning to find better ways of operating in the attacking third, more entry into the box, more quality entrance of the box. And now, of course, you add in the final detail, the moment of truth when someone takes a chance. And we're beginning to look more effective in different ways. Have never been wanting pure football all the time. How many different ways can you affect the opposition? That's what I believe is correct about football, and that's what we're trying to do.
And just away from the first team squad, Isaac Price has had a good week, been called into the Northern Ireland squad for the first time. What are your thoughts on that, and have you had a chance to speak to him?
Nobody spoke to him. I'd speak to other players casually around the training ground, and he put a big shift in last week physically. He got a bit of a knock, so he hadn't trained a couple of days, but nothing serious. He's a good young player. I mean, I'm new to the young group here. I've watched one game and tried to get clips of another. My staff have been to other games, so we're trying to pick up the young players as we go. But he's been training with the group quite a lot since I've been here, and he looks like a good prospect. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Go to Shimon at the BBC.
Hi, Sean. What have you made of Brentford's progress, and is it the sort of club that teams in the low end of the table should aspire to be like?
I'm not sure you aspire to be like anyone. I think most teams would have a way of working, a format that they trust. The more of the story of Brentford has been learning from, trying to buy players and making the ups and downs of recruitment. They've come through a spell, they've got it right. That's obvious with some of the players they've brought in, and the manager's doing a great job there as well. And it's a lot of years. People think it's a recent story. It's not. It's been going a long time to get it to where it's got to. And they've done very well in the bigger picture. And the most recent manager's done very well too. And like I say, I've spent a bit of time with him. So I sort of know a bit about him, and I like him. I think he wants his team to just play real football, play hard football, play committed, and put everything on the pitch. And I think they've shown signs of that this season, and particularly, I think it's 12 games they've had. So, but he's like all Premier League managers. He'll not be coming to Goodison thinking that just rolls on. He'll know that he'll have to be ready, and his team will have to be ready.
Did you learn anything new or different from Thomas?
From what, sorry?
Did you learn anything new or different from him?
It wasn't that kind of trip, trust me.
Hey, Sean. You've spoken about balance in the team and being tight at the back and more loose up front. I assume as the season goes on and the players get more used to what they're doing, you expect them to get allow them to be a little bit more loose up front, because
it's not really, there's no allowance. It's just reading the game. It's understanding the nature of the game. It's the game management. You know, as you mature as a player and as a group, knowing the moments when it's more attacking bound, knowing the momentum of a game, the feel of a game. You know, that's that kind of thing. It's on pitch stuff. You know, you can only coach so many things on the training ground. It's learning from what the game offers you at any given time. And like I say, I thought Forest was a good example of playing very well first half. They had a 10 minutes when we gave away chances to them, really, from silly decisions in the first half, but very good first half, I thought, strong first half. And then second half, a different kind of half, but I was pleased in the sense, apart from a mistake that led to a goal, obviously, I was pleased with the way we adapted to that, because they tried to play forwards a lot, tried to chip it forwards over our heads. We kept turning back and then countering, and then you're only questioning the moments of truth, you know, because we got in so many good positions against Forest second half to go and find the final pass, the final finish, etc., etc. That's the next stage of the team building, you know, because I've been pleased with the physicality. That's the stats. My eyes prove that, but the stats as well. You know, the running power of the group has improved in the way that we have to go about our business. I mean, the shape's been good, the belief in the shape, the belief in what they're doing. And now it's the details, you know, that's the next step. How can you find the right details? But the markers are quite strong, you know, getting balls into better areas, getting more bodies in the box, getting more quality going into the box. The marker's there, but you still got to go and finish them chances and keep the back door shut whilst you're attacking.
Yeah, because obviously your wins have also all been by a single goal. So is there a mentality?
Manager's dream, they are. Manager's dream. Even, I tell you, you'd speak to the best managers, they love a 1-0, trust me.
Well, I can imagine they do, but it's a 1-0. It's a scoreline you can never guarantee. And I wonder if there's a mentality with the players.
You can never guarantee any score, you know, unless you're miles away. And if Man City, when they're 4 up, they'll probably guarantee that one. But there aren't many. So you don't really worry about scorelines. It's how you're handling a game, how you're managing a game, and how you're managing your performance. What I do know is the relentless mentality I want from the players. And we've been speaking about that a lot. You know, that relentless mentality. Anything's achievable at any given moment in a game. So we take on the game to the last breath. And like I say, an error here and there, particularly against Forest, there's absolutely physically a very, very strong performance. The energy of the side, the shape of the side, but them details are important.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
Well. Hi Sean, we've heard a lot about Dominic Calvert-Lewin's fitness, but how's he been behind the scenes mentally? Because it can't be easy, the amount of setbacks he's had, and I'm sure he's aware of, you know, the questions you're being fired every week towards him. So how's he handled himself in that?
Yeah, he seems okay to me. You know, we shared a few fashion ideas, like you do, and he's pointing me in the right direction.
You mentioned Brentford's recruited there. Obviously, they went out and got Ivan Toney when he was playing in League One for for Peterborough, beg your pardon. No, they were in Championship at the time, but do you think dipping down to the lower leagues can be something Everton can utilise a little bit more? You know, in the past, I've signed like John Stones, Tim Cahill, and
a lot of them players are, you know, it's one of them funny, footballers when they sign for clubs often become mythical figures, because it's like he just arrived on the scene. His journey's been started from Northampton Town years ago, getting a pretty big move to Newcastle, not really getting it sorted there, then having to really learn his trade, you know, and earn the right to keep going up the ladder. When he did, they didn't pay like 800 grand for him, you know, they paid like 8 million or something. There's a lot of money for a player coming out of Peterborough at that time. And then it still took him time to build on the back of that. So, you know, it's not just pour water on players like him. He's worked very hard for his career, that's for sure, and done very well.
just finally, Isaac Price, you mentioned him earlier. Where are you with contracts with him? I know he's out of
just you know, ongoing discussions. You know, because I'm still pretty new to it, really, being in here. I mean, so just chatting with the right people at the right time, seeing what, you know, it develops, and then, you know, obviously over the coming weeks we'll analyse it more deeply and more in more detail. Sorry, but all the players know the situation or their situation.